Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. So I have significantly struggled coming up with a video idea for this Saturday, and I have probably written like 4 or 5 YouTube outlines for a Saturday video, and just none of them have stuck because what I really want to talk to you about and talk to everyone about is honestly bird photography. And bird photography in particular has just been something that I have been in love, obsessed, and curious about. So today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about bird photography, and in particular 5 reasons why I've just been in love with bird photography. So the other day my dad had asked me why the sudden obsession with bird photography and wildlife photography, and I didn't really have a solid answer to that because I realized a long time ago that a lot of my photography is based on my curiosity. If I'm curious about a photography subject or a photography technique, then I'm gonna go try it. You've seen it on my channel before. I've played around with stop motion, I've played around with intimate landscape photography, I've played around with time lapses, refraction photography, magic milk, I've played around with flower photography, and now bird photography. And so if I am curious about something, then I'm most likely gonna go try and do it. And I say most likely because I came to this realization not too long ago that I actually hold some pretty strong limiting beliefs when it comes to certain kinds of photography, and that I don't believe that I could do it because I don't know enough about it, or I don't know where to start, or I don't know how to photograph it. And so that will sometimes prevent me from ever pursuing what I'm curious about. So I kind of realized that the other day, but I think one of the best things that photography can offer you is it allows you the freedom to go and explore those curiosities. So number one, they're incredibly beautiful and diverse. So one of my favorite birds that I have photographed to date is the European starling, and she's just an incredibly beautiful bird. So I'll put up a better photo on the screen, but just look at her plumage. It's just so incredibly beautiful. Her chest has this like iridescent like green, blue, purple coloring to it, and so she's just incredibly beautiful, and she's one of my favorite that I think I've photographed. I've also been photographing the osprey a lot, and I really love the osprey. The other day I photographed a type of bird. I haven't yet edited the images yet, or like gone through the process of identifying her and learning more about her yet, so I can't quite tell you what she is yet, but she also had like really incredible like coloring and like pattern to her feathers, and so they're just incredibly beautiful, and not to mention diverse. Like every single time I go to the park I find a different kind of duck, and I know you're thinking ducks really, but every time I go to the park there's a different kind of duck. And so I'm always curious, and I always like photograph them, and then I come home and I'll edit the images, and I'll try to figure out either through my bird book or the Merlin Bird ID app, which has also been really great and really easy to use. Like I can just choose a photo or take a photo, but I mostly just like choose a photo. So if we go into it and I choose my bird, so this is gonna, I already know it's a European starling, but I can go in, it'll identify it for me, and it'll tell me, you know, it's a European starling, and it'll give me like a little bit of information about her, and then I'll also kind of go into the book and try to find her in the book, just so then I have like a little bit more information. I oftentimes find it's a little bit hard in the book because they only provide like one photo of, most times one photo of the bird, versus in the app they provide you with like multiple examples. So like this is what a breeding adult looks like. They also provide you an example with a non-breeding adult photo, and then they show you what a juvenile looks like. So they just provide like different photo examples if you're having like a hard time, you know, confirming if that is your bird. But they're incredibly beautiful and diverse. So that is definitely one of my favorite things about just doing bird photography. 2, it's incredibly challenging. So birds are extremely fast and unpredictable. So I have found with the bigger birds like the osprey, you have a better chance of kind of like predicting their movement and where they're going to be in their sort of like flight path. But I find with the small birds, they're crazy. They just fly in every which direction and you never know where they're going to go. And when they do land and perch, they don't do it for very long. So you have to be like incredibly fast. You have to be quiet. And you also have to be creative because you're trying to like find the best expression of that subject. And so it's always very difficult and it's very challenging. So I've really been enjoying like the challenging aspect of bird photography. The third reason why I've really been loving bird photography is it's incredibly fun. I have really been enjoying myself when I get out in nature now to do bird photography, because depending on the area that I go in, like I said, they're all beautiful and diverse, and so it's really cool to check out different habitats and figure out like what kind of birds are living in that habitat. And then it's also really cool to come back home, edit the photos, and then kind of like learn more about them. So what is the bird, you know, is it a male or female? What are its mating habits? What are its like feedings and behaviors? So it's all really cool, and it all just kind of like comes together to create just this fun process of photography. So I've just really been having a lot of fun with bird photography. Number 4 is birds honestly helped me reconnect with nature. So back in the winter time, I was in this like huge creative rut because I wasn't all that inspired to get outdoors, and the weather had a huge factor in this. I do find that when the weather is gray and dull and blah, I do not feel inspired to go outside at all. And this was happening a lot because, you know, the winters are very dull and gray here in Kelowna. And so one day I just knew that I had to get out in nature and just take some photos. Like that's all I had to do. And so I went to the beach to take some photos, and because it was such a calm day on the lake that day, these geese that had flown over, they actually created a reflection in the water. And there was just something in that moment that triggered something in my brain, that triggered my curiosity to pursue the birds further. And so later that same week, I actually went out to a different beach here in the Okanagan to photograph some birds. And so the birds really just kind of helped me get out of that creative rut and reconnect me with nature, because since that, I've been able to get back out more regularly and consistently. So I have the birds to thank for that. And the last reason why I've been really in love and obsessed with bird photography is that it introduced me to the broader world of wildlife photography. I've mentioned it before, but I actually hold some pretty strong limiting beliefs when it comes to wildlife photography, because I always told myself, and I always kind of spun the story of, you don't know anything about wildlife, you don't know where to find them, how to photograph them, you don't have any tracking skills whatsoever, you don't know what time of day they're out at. And I didn't really realize that I had such a strong limiting belief until a couple of weeks ago, when I was really thinking about bird photography and why I've been loving bird photography. So bird photography has really been helping me kind of break down that wall that I put up for myself. So I'm really thankful to them for that. So I've been loving bird photography. I've been loving the broader world of wildlife photography. I have been mostly obsessed with birds, but to be honest with you, I'm also obsessed with this family of beavers that I found. So there's also that. I've also watched like probably 101 nature documentaries on wildlife, like every single nature documentary on Netflix and Disney Plus that featured wildlife, I have probably watched, because I am just in this huge like wildlife, nature, bird photography, just animal photography zone right now. And so I've just watched and consumed everything, and it's fun. Let me know in the comments if you've been obsessed with bird photography lately, or if you've always been obsessed with bird photography, and maybe why in the comments. That is everything for today's video. I really hope you enjoyed, and maybe go out and try some bird photography yourself, and I'll see you in the next one.